Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about the 2004 German film Downfall, about the last days of the Third Reich. The movie is based on the memoirs of Theodor Jung, who was Adolf Hitler's personal secretary from the height of the Second World War until its very end. The film begins with her appointment to the role in late 1942, then jumps forward to the summer of 1945 and the final days of the war in Europe, anyway. The optimism of 1942 is now long forgotten. The Soviet military has pushed Germany's forces back and has surrounded Berlin. On Hitler's 56th birthday, the Red Army begins shelling the very centre of Berlin. But Germany's supreme leader refuses all calls to abandon the city. He retreats into a fortified underground bunker, determined to win or die in the capital of his regime. As those close to him have begun to realise, the Führer's grip on reality is slipping. He orders impossible counterattacks using forces that no longer exist and explodes into a towering range of any perceived insubordination or failure. As the German defences inevitably crumble, the Nazi dictator plots both his own demise and that of his regime. Bitterly blaming the German people for their weakness, as he calls it, he intends to leave the country a smoking ruin. As the apocalyptic ending of the war draws ever closer, Hitler's subordinates and followers will each need to make the choice whether to follow him into the flames or seek some means of escape. So Downfall was a commercial and critical success upon its release and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, though it didn't win. It also spawned an entire subgenre of internet parody videos. If you've ever seen a video where Hitler explodes into an incandescent rage about some modern day issue like having his Xbox account suspended or the writing in a video game, it's probably using footage from this film. So the movie obviously made an impression, but is it any good? Well, in my opinion, yes. It's not quite flawless, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but it is very well made and overall worth a watch. So let's talk about why. So Hitler is played by Bruno Ganz, and he delivers a truly exceptional performance in this movie. Now, I don't speak German, so I obviously can't understand the words as he speaks them. I'm relying on the subtitles for that. But acting is very much about more than just saying the words. The tone of delivery, the volume and pitch, all of the non-verbal elements, body language, gestures and so forth, are vital parts of the performance, and Gans does a tremendous job of conveying Hitler's increasingly out-of-touch self-belief and of portraying his apocalyptic rages. These furies are well documented by those who met the man in real life, and Gans barks, shouts, slams his fists and nigh froths at the mouth as he heaps scorn and vitriol on those who displease him. The character is in no way likeable or pleasant. I mean, he's literally Hitler, after all, but it's an excellent portrayal and has to be recognised as such. Gans also has to show some range, as the slow collapse of Hitler's regime finally becomes too obvious for even the monomaniacal Führer to ignore. That he weeps over the destruction of his vile and terrible dreams provoked some criticism of the film and discussion as to whether it was appropriate to show Hitler as a human being as well as a monster. I personally think that Downfall executes this balancing act quite well, without betraying the basic and irrefutable fact that the Nazi regime and its leader were deeply abhorrent. And the film makes no effort to obfuscate the fact that the list of Hitler's victims is enormous. Millions of Jews murdered in concentration camps, programs against homosexuals, the soldiers who fought and died to defeat him, the civilians who suffered through the Blitz and the atrocities of the Eastern Front. The list goes on and on. This movie, I think, also acknowledges and even centres one group of victims who tend to be overlooked, which is the German people themselves. Now, to be clear, I don't mean that it attempts to put the German people in the same standing as, say, the Jews, and I'd be outraged if it did, and it does not attempt to deny the German people's culpability in their own, well, downfall. But having accepted that the German people were culpable in the horrors that befell them, the film pulled no punches in depicting those horrors. There's a memorable scene in the film where Goebbels sneers, "The German people chose this. They gave us the mandate, and now they're going to get their throats cut." And we see that, whether it be the 12-year-old boys enlisting to fight, the old men executed for not taking up arms, or just the failure of anyone to do anything to stop Hitler's madness. The film does not shy away from depicting what the German people brought themselves to, nor what they suffered. And it doesn't flinch either from showing the various ways in which the Fuhrer's entourage react to the increasingly inevitable defeat. Some respond with unflinching fanaticism, others with futile outrage at the impending disaster, and still others with bleak fatalism. And importantly, I think the film is very clear that these are reactions to losing the war, not to waging it. There is nobody here having a sudden epiphany. Oh, we're the bad guys. They are the bad guys. But there's no I knew this was it was a bad idea to try and conquer other nations. It was, there's no attempt to deny culpability, which I think is important. Now, obviously, this is all grim and weighty stuff, but this was a grim time, and it's executed well, but it's not going to be to everybody's tastes. If I were to find one fault with Downfall as a film experience, it's I think that at 155 minutes at length, it might run just a little bit too long. I think this is particularly the case because Hitler's suicide and crude cremation comes nearly an hour before the end of the film. Without Gans's tour de force performance to anchor it, the film felt a smidgen adrift to me. And that's not to say that the film has nothing left to show. The final death throes of the Third Reich are not yet complete, for one thing, and they're every bit as confronting as you might expect, given the fanaticism of some of those involved. And it's also true that Traudl Jung's personal story does not end with Hitler's death, and the film is based on her memoir. But the film has not centred her in the narrative the way it has Hitler. It does not feel like we're watching her life story, even though we kind of technically are. So the film's focus on her for its finale didn't quite 100% work for me. Still, I think the effort to show what happened after Hitler's suicide was a worthwhile one, just that more should have been done earlier to take on Frau Jung and make her more central to the audience experience of the film, rather than just an observer of events like we are. But overall, I think this is a good movie, well made, and it is worth your time to see. As long as you can handle the subtitles, of course. So, next time, one of my favourite bad movies, Uwe Boll's 2005 offering Blood Rain. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.